All right, we're back. Week 2 of the NFL season. Let's get right into it. I don't have that many takeaways from this game. This was a pretty standard Thursday night football matchup versus two interdivisional rivals. The one thing you really hope for is that Justin Herbert's rib injury is not as serious as maybe a season-ending injury. He's supposed to play week 3, but I mean, he fractured his ribs in multiple places. I would not have him in for too long. Just hope that Justin Herbert, he's such a game changer. You really hope his injury doesn't affect the season. You hope it doesn't derail that. The Chiefs, obviously, still look good. Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the league, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and he kind of proved it again in this game. Other than some dropped interceptions, this was just a standard game, good game. Now, this was the absolute craziest game of the week. Ravens, Miami. Tua had 6 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson had an incredible game. The Dolphins came back at halftime. It was 35-14, and the Dolphins came all the way back to win 42-38. Now, is Tua fraudulent? Absolutely not. I think he is putting himself into that conversation of being a average to above average quarterback and not a replaceable quarterback like he has been. But Tyreek and Jalen Waddle absolutely make this offense. Without both of them, who had incredible games, both having 11 receptions, over 170 yards, and both having 2 touchdowns. Without them, this team would not be as good as it is. This is one of the most dynamic offenses, purely based on their speed. They have three of the top 5 fastest players in the league, and they have Mike Gesicki, who is great after the catch and great at the catch point. And as you can see in the final drive, just managing to get that touchdown to Jalen Waddle, winning the game. My biggest takeaway, the Ravens still look like the best team, even though they did choke a massive lead. But the Dolphins look like a playoff team, and I think that's where they end up. I think they end up as a premier wildcard team. The big takeaway of the 49ers game was that, unfortunately, Trey Lance did hurt his ankle very badly. But Jimmy G did come in and won the game. The only real takeaway is that injuries could be killing the 49ers again. George Kittle is out as that play. His ankle just gets moved the wrong way. As you can see, clicks his ankle and rolls it and gets brutally hit. But George Kittle is still out with an injury. And yeah. But for the Seattle Seahawks, they fluked out a win against the Denver Broncos. So, we already knew that they were probably going to be a bottom 5 team. And this game, pretty standard NFC West game. This game isn't really a game about takeaways. This game just happened. The Browns, as you can see, had a 13-point lead above the Jets within 2 minutes ago. It's just a lead that you cannot lose. Now, it's not like the Browns are going to be a bad team. They have one of the best rushing attacks in the league. They also have an incredible defense. But we already knew that they weren't going to win some of these games because Jacoby Brissett has a capped ceiling, and the wide receiver core isn't great other than Amari Cooper. But now I don't think we expected the Jets to come back like this, where they scored 13 seconds in around a minute, or they scored 14 points in around a minute 30. But the biggest takeaway for me was that Garrett Wilson had his breakout game. It looks like he's probably the best route runner of the 2022 class, and he could possibly even be the best receiver, or he could be number 2 or 3, depending on how you put Jahan Dotson and how you put Drake London. As you can see, Garrett Wilson getting his 2nd touchdown of the game. Joe Flacco also had 4 touchdowns. This was a fun game, and I know that the Browns fans definitely deserve it after those images surfaced with the happy endings are not illegal. It's a fan base that potentially could go to hell, and I know a lot of people are happy that the Browns are going to lose, or that they did lose this game. Both of these teams came into the game needing to prove something. The Cowboys needed to prove that they were a team without Dak Prescott, but the Bengals also needed to prove that the Steelers game was just a wash and that Joe Burrow wasn't going to throw 4 picks a game. Now, one team succeeded in the aspect, and that was the Cowboys. Cowboys played pretty well. Their defense was incredible. Trayvon Diggs had a bounce-back game against Jamar Chase. Had a pretty decent game. Cooper Rush led the game-winning drive, and as Dallas wins on that score. But the Bengals are looking extremely suspect, and I'm scared for their future because there's not room to work with in their system. Because they just have... They can't really move... they can't add a receiver piece. Their offensive line was rebuilt. So the Bengals need to get their shit together. The Raiders are concerning me because they're looking pretty fraudulent. Derek Carr against the Chargers had 3 interceptions, and now the Raiders just blew a 20-point lead to the Cardinals, who everybody's riding off this year. The Cardinals looked a lot better in the second half, and Kyler Murray showed a lot of poise in the bounce-back game. As you see, threaded the needle to A.J. Green. Other than that, I'm just very concerned for the Raiders, and I'm less concerned for the Cardinals moving forward. Everybody's excited and everybody's happy that the Giants have won back-to-back games. But let's remember that the Giants did win against the Titans and the Panthers. The Titans have been depleted the last couple of years, and the Panthers are the Panthers. Matt Rule is probably the worst head coach in the league right now, and this is not a very good team. But what I will give the Giants is that their defense stepped up big time, especially with that Julian Love sack on 3rd and 6. The defense stepped up multiple times to end up closing this game. Now, do I think the Giants are going to be a 7-8 win team? No. But do I think they'll be a 6-7 win team? Yes, because they have one of the easiest schedules in the league, and it looks like Dallas might be a little bit depleted. And if the Giants can beat a team like the Titans, yeah, they could maybe split with the Commanders. So, do I think Daniel Jones will keep his job? Probably not, depending on the draft pick they have. But do I think that this team has performed well the last 2 games? Yes. But you're not going to face the Panthers and the Titans every week. You're going to have some games where you're going to lose. Don't expect this to be above a 500 team after week 10. I'll give them that. This Colts team scares me more than you can imagine. I know that Michael Pittman went out or did not play in this game. And what I said in my last video was that if one of the main impact players, Jonathan Taylor or Michael Pittman, goes down, what do the Colts really have? And we saw what they had, and that's nothing. Matt Ryan had 3 interceptions, and the Jaguars very convincingly won this game, as you could have seen. Floated that interception. The Colts scored 0 points against 2 teams that they should have won. The Texans and the Jaguars are not on the same level as the Colts, yet they played down to their competition multiple times, and they probably should have lost against the Texans too. They should be 0-2. But do I think this Colts team bounces back? Potentially. But do they have a realistic option of finishing under 500? It's very likely now. The Jaguars, my takeaway for the Jaguars is that Trevor Lawrence finally got what he deserved. He's been playing the way he should have, but his team has been selling him the whole time. But finally, he got the game. He had almost a perfect game based on what he could perform. Played with poise, threw well. Christian Kirk had multiple touchdowns as well. Trevor Lawrence played well. Jaguars played well. And the Colts are looking pretty bad. Probably the most boring game so far this week. Patriots, Steelers. These are 2 mid offenses and 2 defenses that are right now kind of on the same level. The pass rush is not there for the Steelers without TJ Watt. TJ Watt brings a different level to this defense, and we saw TJ Watt's absence in the Steelers play. Mac Jones is looking much of the same. The Patriots receivers look much of the same other than Nelson Aguilar had an incredible catch. For the Steelers, potentially they should start getting Kenny Pickett ready to start and it was just there's not that many takeaways you can take. We kind of learned the same things that we did before this game. Yeah, those are just my takeaways. I don't know what to discern about the Lions. Uh, I like, I really like this team. The culture matters in the NFL, and you can see guys really buying into the system, and the system does work. It's the Lions score a lot of points. This is the second game in a row for them scoring above 30 points. Amon-Ra St. Brown could be a potential top 15 wide receiver through a full season of him getting a wide receiver one amount of targets. I can really see Amon-Ra St. Brown being one of those receivers. He is a game changer. Now, do I think that Jared Goff is the quarterback going forward? No. If they have a really good, if the Lions had, or if they have an elite quarterback, I think this team could easily go into the playoffs. For the defense, Aiden Hutchinson had his breakout game with 3 sacks. Likely, or he was my defensive rookie of the year prediction. As you see, DeAndre Swift once again breaks another humongous run. The Commanders, we didn't really learn anything new from the Commanders either. For the Commanders, we kind of didn't learn anything new. This is going to be a high-volume passing offense for the Commanders. It's going to be a decent defense, even though they're going to allow some points. So, yeah, and also Carson Wentz, would they want to move along with Carson Wentz, or do they, depending on the draft pick, do they want to go with another quarterback? Interesting conversation. These are two teams that I'm not horribly worried about. Even though the Bucs offense has been looking slow, the Bucs defense is a top 5 unit in the league. Jameis Winston, or speaking about the Saints, Jameis Winston had 3 interceptions, potentially going back to his old form. But anyways, Marshawn, the big takeaway for this game was that Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans once again have a fist fight. Tom Brady, low key an instigator, low key an L quarterback. But yeah, classic NFC South game. It was an entertaining game, but the Saints offense isn't looking as good as people thought it was going to, actually, with Jameis's ceiling capped, basically. The Packers once again best the Bears. For the my takeaway for the Packers is that the wide receivers looked a lot better. They were dropping the ball far less often. They're being more secure with the catches. Aaron Jones is looking like an elite running back. He ran very efficiently, and A.J. Dillon also is A.J. Dillon. That's a really good 1-2 back. For the Packers defense. Defense is looking great. We already knew this. Preston Smith is a really good pass rusher. Even though the pass rush for the Bears got in there a lot, I think the offensive line is going to improve as you get back David Bakhtiari. For the Bears, their rushing attack with Khalil Herbert and David Montgomery is very good. Especially if you add in Justin Fields, that's a very good rushing attack. Their passing attack is not there. They really don't have a great passing offense. But is Justin Fields, does he have a good potential as a NFL quarterback? I think he's probably a top 4 right now rookie quarterback if you add in Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones, Davis Mills, and then him. He's performed better than Trey Lance, and Zach Wilson hasn't played yet. So those are my takeaways for the game. The Broncos offense the last 2 games has been very slow. They don't stretch the field as much as I would like to, even though Cortland Sutton had a way better game. But it feels like Russell Wilson will dial into one receiver. Last week we saw with Jerry Jeudy. This week we saw more with Cortland Sutton. He kind of eyes down one receiver on the outside and kind of only targets them for the rest of the game. Their offense is kind of a slow-moving offense. A lot of checkdowns, but they also had quite a few drops in this game, as you saw that one from Albert Okwuegbunam. But for the defense, it's a good defense. It doesn't have as much pass rush, but the secondary is good. For the Texans, their offense just couldn't get it rolling today. Even though I like Davis Mills, this offense has a cap ceiling just because there is not a lot of high potential players, unless you count Dameon Pierce and Brandon Cooks as high potential, even though Brandon Cooks is in his prime right now. Davis Mills he's good, but I wouldn't expect this Texans team to make a push in the AFC South. And for the Broncos, they could potentially be even a low wild card if they don't get this offense really rolling. After the Monday night games, my takeaway from the Eagles is that they're going to be serious contenders. I could see them being a top 3 seed pretty easily. They looked way better than the Vikings. They are going to look way better than any other team in the NFC East. And the real only competition is probably going to be the Bucs. This has a lot of star power with A.J. Brown. They have such a good defense. They have a good secondary. They have a good defensive line. Jalen Hurts is in his breakout season. He's making limited mistakes. He has better accuracy. He's got better zip on the ball. And he has that elite rushing ability that he always had. For the Vikings, they're just kind of the same team. Kirk Cousins, I think everybody thought he could, I don't know, be a top 10 quarterback. Look, listen, it's Monday Night Football. Primetime Kirk Cousins is, primetime Kirk Cousins, as his mantra would be. Justin Jefferson kind of got shut down, which you do not want to see if you're trying to be one of the best wide receivers in the league. 3 interceptions were thrown. Dalvin Cook was shut down a lot too. The big thing is that the NFC right now is pretty much wide open, and potentially the Eagles could take advantage and be a top 2, top 3 seed. This is a pretty easy takeaway. The Bills are the best team in the league. I had them as the best team in the league, and no wonder why. This is a great defense. This is the great offense. Stephon Diggs is a top 5, easily top 5 receiver. Josh Allen is a top 3 quarterback who has elite rushing and passing ability, the strongest arm in the league. The offensive line is holding up well. Josh Allen right now is my favorite to be MVP, and they look pretty unstoppable against the Rams, who were the Super Bowl. The Rams were the Super Bowl winners last year, and the Titans were the number 1 seed in the AFC, and they very easily beat both teams. Could see them having 14 to 15 wins. Their offensive attack is crazy. They don't even need to run the ball. They can pass the ball every single down, and it'll still work. For the Titans, doesn't look like they're making the playoffs. It's really hard to discern who even is the worst team in the AFC South. Pretty much the Jaguars are right now the best team. This is going to be another one of those NFC East situations back in 2020 when we had the football team, aka now the Commanders. They were 7-9, made the playoffs. They're going to have an 8-win, a 7-win team make the playoffs in the NFC South. I really don't like anybody coming out of there. But those are just some of my takeaways out of this week. I went a little bit in depth, where I want to continue to do this throughout the whole season, give a takeaway of every single team, and we'll see how all of them progress. But see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.